So thanks again, everyone, for being here. There's quite a lot of people here. Danny, thanks for being here as well. And I'm going to ask you 4 questions. But I'm pretty sure by looking at the chat already, I think there will be people asking some questions to you as well. But let's start with my first question to you. It's always a bit of a weird question. I think all 4 of them are they can go in so many directions, but what is your most important image so far in your career to you?
I think I'll start sharing here so I can bring it up. Let's see.
I love how you made a whole fancy presentation.
Not very fancy whatsoever. Fancy is not what I do. Okay. So a lot of people know this photo, and a lot are probably not surprised that this image is, what I have up first and want to talk about. And a lot know the history of the photo and then also the recent tragic history of this image. But this is a photo of John Newman underneath his pickup truck on his ranch. It's near Cactus Flat, South Dakota. So just outside of the Badlands National Park, actually. I basically got lost. I was using GPS for the first time while out on my personal work, and I drove by a bizarre scene. I drove by a Minuteman missile site that is now a historic. People go and take tours, so it's a historic site, but it was when John was growing up, it was a Minuteman missile site. So it was right next to his farm, or his ranch, pardon me. I turned onto his ranch and met his, at the time, girlfriend, Julie, and we got to talking, and then I headed on my way because she helped me get unlost. Told me not to use the goofy GPS. I got my map out. We figured out where I needed to go. I went on a nice long drive across the prairie. And when I got to a town that had the population of 12, guess what? There was nothing going on in that town. And I turned around, drove right back a couple hours back to Julie, and then I met John that night. This photo was made on my second trip. The reason why I was there on my first trip, I was up for a grant. I was a finalist for a grant where they decided they wanted us to go out and make work over the course of they gave us a couple weeks. So over the course of a week, I went to the Badlands. The reason why I was there, had just finished Driftless, my first major body of work. And anyway, I went to this region because it had been suffering drought for 8 straight years. Out migration from rural communities has been, the center of my work. And I, when I made the photo, John and Julie often worked apart, different parts of the ranch. So Julie she was dealing with manure and, in one of the barns. And then I walked over to the horse barn, and the workshop's connected to the horse barn. And I came around the corner, and John was under the truck working, and I just quietly made like 4 frames with my Leica, And, you know, he was working with his right arm. His left was just laying there. And, you know, for me, you know, the photo, I did see death in it, the death of rural life, as I knew it from my childhood and what I had been, you know, dealing with in Iowa, covering for Driftless. And, you know, but John was really proud of this photo, you know, because he saw the beauty in it too. He saw the beauty in the rough.
Danny, how did you kind of see death or the end in this image?
Well, John's hand, it's his left hand that you see. It's almost as if he's being crushed by the truck. But, you know, I also, with the care that he had given to where he placed his cowboy hat, you know, and how perfect his cowboy hats always were. His boots were often dirty, and, you know, because he wore them while working, and, you know, ripped jeans. Well, you know, some people pay a lot of money to have ripped jeans. You know, but it was that contrast, his beautiful cowboy hat, straw cowboy hat on top of the tire, but then his hand laying almost as if that tire had crushed him. You know, that, and John loved the image. I remember a couple years later being up and we were sitting outside the trailer, and some people sent me a photo of this image being projected at the New York Photo Festival. It was huge on the side of the brook. Well, I think it was Slide Luck, that, which was part of that year, was part of the festival. And, you know, John just, he loved that fact that the image was being projected huge on a screen in New York City. And, you know, there we were sitting, you know, out in the middle of nowhere, actually. But yeah, so he always connected to this photo. I kind of can go off, Ilvy, so I want you to be able to ask questions.
Yeah,
I can't see any of the questions coming in.
Yeah, I'm gonna check. I wondered actually if to you it's important that the people you photograph like the image, because I'm guessing it's not always the case, right? Or maybe it is, I don't know.
I always give the, you know, I've from day one always given the photos that I use to subjects. I know a lot of people, you know, will give outtakes, and for me, I just, from the very beginning, you know, I'm about giving the images that you know, that will be published and you know, hopefully carry on well past me. John had this photo, and he did. He loved it. I remember giving a photo to a father. It's just a subject from Driftless, Ilvy. I gave a 16x20 fiber print that I made, and Leslie Miller, so New Order Amish family. He was so proud of that photograph, but he had 9 kids and some were quite young. And he goes, you know, I got to put this somewhere safe. And we were standing by his desk, and he opened a drawer of his desk, took the 16x20, folded it in half, creased it so he could fit in the drawer and shut the drawer, and it was safe.
Oh no. And your heart was like out.
All the hours of making that fiber print, you know, it did hurt a tiny bit, but I also loved it. I was like, yeah, it's yours.
Yeah. Just keep it the way you. Oh goodness. Yeah, that would kind of hurt. So would you mind telling about the more recent events a bit? And I saw you also did a print sale of this image to help the family. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that and kind of what happened in recent years.
Yeah, so John took his life in the summer of 2019. John had been sick for a long time with an inflammatory immune disease that attacked his joints. It was extremely painful. he had gotten private insurance. Was Tabitha told me they were paying $600 a month
That's
for
his
this
girlfriend,
private.
right?
Yes, yeah, his girlfriend and mom of his son Stetson, and they were paying for this insurance, but the problem was there was one specialist in the entire region, and I'm not just talking like within 100 square miles. He was having to go all the way across from the west side of South Dakota to the east side. And it was a year-long wait to get into that specialist, and unfortunately John took his life before he even got that care that might have had an impact on the level of daily pain. There are a lot of reasons for why suicide is so much more prevalent in rural areas. 25 times that of major urban areas suicide rate. The completion completion of suicide in rural areas is much higher due to access to firearms. That's something that isn't a part of our conversation around suicide in rural communities enough, in my opinion. I'm not trying. I mean, I have very strong opinions on gun control. They're they're not as clearly defined as an all yes or an all no. But that's for another day's conversation that would take up a lot longer than an hour.
Exactly. We could go on for 2 hours probably.
Yeah,
but it
yes.
it's I actually didn't know that suicides, because of the gun laws or because of guns actually, are, what is the word, more, sorry, I lost the word that you just used.
More available. People have access to firearms in rural areas. It's very much part of the culture, and unfortunately that means that the completion rate is much higher. And John did shoot himself. So, but
are you still in contact with the family now?
Yeah, I am. So a little over a year after John took his life, I got a call from a friend of Tabitha's, and she said she had just found out that the trailer burnt down. So Tabitha and Stetson were inside during the extreme cold of a little over a year ago now, and an ember from their wood burning stove flew back into the trailer and caught the trailer on fire. And fortunately Tabitha was awake and grabbed Stetson, and they ran out, and by the time they made it down the driveway, the trailer was fully involved. This is the photo I spoke about. So this was recovered a few days after the fire by one of the ranch hands, good friend of Tabitha. And she there's this, and then a photo of Tabitha and John, actually, trying to keep the number of photos that low like you asked, Ilvy. So I'm not showing that one.
But this is the two, I mean, as I understood, like almost all of the trailer burned down, right? Like
the trailers, it was all that was left was the base, and then piles of, what's that?
And then these two pictures, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That
I'm sure there's silverware and other things.
Yeah.
But they found the box that Tabby had kept all the photos I'd given over the years in, and Julie had some, but John had some, and then I'd given more when I had visited and Tabitha was living at the ranch, and the two that survived, both this and then one of John hugging Tabitha, and it just to me, it was, these issues of lack of access to healthcare, just lack of access to mental health care, just people's opinion in rural communities, that just inability to understand the need for help. This photo surviving has kind of helped push me through, my own like ideas around what I'm doing with my photography, where I need to go, and then my own mental health struggles and work, to deal with that myself.
Can you explain a little bit more what you mean about that? How this photograph kind of changed your view on your work and your own mental health and the way you want to work? Is that?
Well, I mean, on it has a lot to do with balance, like finding balance. I think, having not dealt with, complex childhood trauma, for 40 years, it led to, it led to alcohol abuse, and multiple times in my life I've stopped drinking. I don't drink anymore. There's just so much, tied together, when you live a story the way in which I have always worked. But yeah, it's having there's regret, having wished I, had even a better understanding. But I'll be honest, I've tried to help others who have in rural communities that have, been through tragedy, find mental health care services, and it's next to impossible. I guess, silver lining, half cup full, what we've seen come out of the pandemic is, just this explosion of online, telehealth, especially in the mental health space. And I really think that that's the answer. I mean, when you have, prices of gas that, in these rural communities that just make it impossible, whether people would even have the time to travel hundreds of miles for a mental health appointment, the cost is, it's absolutely impossible.
Not everyone can afford it, of course. Yeah. So online would be a solution to this.
I guess, having failed in some of those situations where I don't think I was able to help people just because of seeing the barriers that seemed insurmountable to those individuals, and actually to me, someone who lives in a community with incredible healthcare, one of the largest teaching hospitals in the country is right here at the University of Iowa. I live in a small college town, but because of that university, we have just unbelievable access to care and other aspects of a just society that a lot of these remote communities do not have. And it's wealth consolidation. It's all the things I've been talking about for a long time. But it's just keeping on the course. And that's what I'm doing.
So do you kind of, because you're quite open about this, and thanks as well for doing that. Do you feel as a photographer you need to help people as well by telling their story in some way, or do you feel like separate to you photographing them that you sometimes want to help, or do you feel it's like part of the being a photographer as well?
I think it's part of the contract, unless you're directing and impacting I mean, and what I mean by part of the contract, it's, the fact that, hopefully we're humans first, photographers second, compassionate humans who, I mean, I'm the furthest thing from a perfect human being. I work every day to try to, be better. And, but I would hope our humanity is first and foremost. Unfortunately, journalism it's an industry, and, we've all, heard of, seen situations. I don't care about hearsay, but, seen situations where, people don't act with that in the foreground. They act with other goals, or, as priority one. But it is, there is difficulty, because, and for me, what it is if I have to step in a way that it totally changes the story, I'll do it. And then that's just not a place I will photograph anymore. It's like, it's more important, I think, to help when it's needed, if there are no other options. But often what it is directing people, just, having come, from a community where, no different than the communities I work in, no one had access to mental health care. The stigma around mental health was terrible. It was like, you didn't talk about it, let alone, actually get care. So, I know what it feels like to be in those situations where you just don't have access. And then having the fortune of now living in a community surrounded by people, just a lot of friends who are physicians, and people who, have had great impact. My wife, who's a therapist, Lydia's had incredible impact, hell of a lot more than me. And that's front and center. It has to be for me. And, the photography has to, it's a continuous part, but if it's the only driving force, then the balance is, and I've lost that balance before. I think we can get into, the next image, and I already kind of touched on it, but I've most definitely have lost that balance before, Ilvy.
It's quite easy to lose it at times. I do also recognize that in my own work, that you can sometimes really get lost into a story or into, but it's to me, it's also not the way it's supposed to be. I like it when I like to be human in my stories, and want to have the human part go first, and then the photography somehow, I don't know if secondary is the right word, but when I can do something, I'd rather do something than shoot, if worse comes to worse, like if it's needed in some way without interfering. It's it is it's quite a balancing act, actually, now that I think of it.
And that's what I love in your work, and that's the work that I most connect with. It's work where, emotion is so foregrounded, like you lose all consideration of the photographic process. If there's, Chris Anderson said, like for him, I'm not going to get the quote exactly right, but for him, photography is just about emotion. Everything else is just a trick. And I just think that that's one of the most pure and beautiful and spot on things that I've read about photography. And
That's so true. It's so true. What a good quote, actually. Because I teach a lot. Well, you teach as well, right?
Exactly what he said. It's out there everywhere. And
so it's mostly your quote, maybe. No, but I'm teaching a lot, and I think you are as well. And lots of it happens a lot that students ask a lot about technical things, And I always tell them I'm definitely not the most technical person in the world. I'm more about connecting, because when you connect to people, you can tell their story much better. And I know many students are always waiting for the more technical aspects. And yeah, I feel that part is important, but it's also a trick. It's rules. It's not what makes a story usually, I feel. Yeah.
It's just not, it's, you know, you're, I'm not going to connect to that work. You know, and you know, the work that I first connected to when I started in photography very late in my undergrad, you know, education, you know, Nan Golden, Larry Clark, you know, it was work that lived entirely in emotion and you know, and I remember going to a talk by Nan up in Chicago. John Lowenstein and I went to it, and standing room only. We got there late. Ended up sitting like almost at Nan's feet. She was giving a presentation at the Art Institute, and she was talking about not understanding early in her career why her color photographs sometimes they came out green, or parts of the, and not understanding temperature of bulbs and color and light, blah blah blah. And I just was like, I was like, because the technical side of it was a real struggle. You know, I wasn't interested. I had close friends who were incredible at it, and they've been, like, over the years, just so damn gracious in being patient with me and helping me when I call them. I love them for it. You know, because you know, just part of that ADHD mind that it's been a struggle, but struggles are a good thing. They're a good thing. They force you to you know, work harder than others maybe have to work in places, and that's a beautiful thing. So
yeah, it is. It truly is. There's two questions that came in. One is from Liam Kennedy. Do you see the questions? I'll read it out loud to you, but they are in the Q&A box as well.
I can't see it because of how I'm sharing.
Okay, I'll read it out. I'll read it. So the one is from Liam Kennedy, and the question is, you talk about outmigration from rural communities along with the older generation retiring or passing away. Do you see a younger generation taking over these ranches, farms, and workshops? Do they have pride in it, or do they feel burdened with these tasks?
I think that's such an incredible question, and you know, literally I could go to the end of it. So I'm just going to end of our talk with just answering that. So I'm going to try to hit a few points. I don't want to be doom and gloom, because, you know, I do know and am in a community where, you know, pre-Great Recession, so pre-2008, we were seeing such incredible movement in the CSA, sustainable farming, young people getting in smaller plots, being able to get small plots. There were loans, you know, but that when people did not have as much disposable income, they weren't able to buy these more expensive foods. And I'm of course talking macro here. Nationally, we saw a real decline in people's buying power for more expensive produce. And you know, that hurt the industry, and I really felt like a freezing of that movement. And it's gotten even worse. You know, so now the dark side of it. At least here in my home state, which, you know, is the largest producer of hogs in the U.S., we've seen just a rollback. We have a governor, Kim Reynolds, who you know, has fought and rolled back any restrictions on hog confinements, on water quality. it's there've been nationally debated, nationally funded and debated water quality lawsuits, Des Moines Water Works lawsuit that went all the way to the Iowa Supreme Court. Eventually they lost. That's due to the high level of nitrates in the water that residents of Des Moines have to pay to have removed. Unfortunately, then they just take those nitrates further downstream, put them back in. This is what they used to do. And it's all so difficult. I've been working on stories around depopulation back in Iowa again, for journalistic organizations. One of those will be coming out, so I won't get into the details because it's not yet published, but stay tuned. I'll put stuff out on social. I'm sure Seven will as well. It's just industry, corporate ag, factory farming is as powerful as it has ever been due to people's economic situation, having cheap food, no matter what the implications of that is, what is running state capitals like Iowa and other rural states. But there are states that saw and rolled back. North Carolina was the largest producer of hogs in the U.S., and they implemented a moratorium on hog confinement. So there's things that can be done. Again, we could talk about this for forever. You can reach out to me private, email, whatever, social media, and we can continue a conversation. But I don't want to. I'm sorry.
That is a question that, there's so much to that question, I think, literally. Did you know I used to live in South Dakota?
Yes.
For 1 year, yeah. And I lived at a ranch as an exchange student when I was 16. And the ranch has now recently been taken over by the younger generation. And I was also always surprised when I lived there. I thought it was not going to happen. They had 2 children. The one wasn't interested in the ranch, and the other one was a girl who was kind of interested in the ranch, but not that much. But she then married a rancher, and now they are taking over the ranch. But I think if they wouldn't have, they might have moved out of state, and then states like this just empty out. But that's a whole, we're not even at the second question yet. We're going to run out of time.
Well, but we kind of, we've really, oh gosh. Yeah, we've touched on the second question, so it's balance and that's what so this is my wife Lydia and my at the time newborn son. Now he's 20-year-old, much bigger than me.
Is he?
Oh God, yeah. Every man in my family is much taller
than you are. Oh
gosh.
So just for the people listening in, the second question would be, what is your biggest photo failure? And you picked this image, and I kind of had a hard time understanding when seeing the image now, like, why would that be a photo failure? But
how I thought about the question is like, what could I talk about that one is, okay, yeah, I fail photographically every single day. Every day I have a camera in my hand. I make, typically my first through on edits. So I have 1,000 photographs, from a shoot. It's usually 10%, slightly less than 10% that get into that. Literally just, how I edit is, any kind of reaction. If I have any kind of reaction to the image, I tag it. I give it a color and it stays. So, that typically is around 10%. So that means 90% are complete garbage. Like, what's the difference between a professional photographer and a hobbyist? The professional doesn't show you all their photos, right?
Yeah. Obviously, it's so true. I love that at lectures. actually, I love to show the outtakes. People are always amazed, like, wow, you take a lot of crap images too. And I'm like, yes, of course I do. Are you kidding me? Yeah, I
Um,
mean, or outtakes, I mean, the ones that I throw out, actually.
yeah,
It's
yeah. I mean,
so unfair. People just think, oh, this final image she must be taking all these kind of final images. No. So it's a good thing
and
you mentioned.
exactly, and and that's just that's a reality of doing anything. Famous quote from Jordan. I missed 9,000 shots to become the greatest basketball player in the history of the sport. Of course, that's it's part of the 10,000 hours. So for me, that like kind of that very literal interpretation of it, just it's like in when I teach workshops or work with students at the documentary workshop I'm director of, I'm pushing everyone to fail. Like, you learn more out of your failure than you do your success. I mean, we all need some success. We need images that, which will be the next photo I show, that have that magic dust. And I'll talk about the magic dust here in a little bit. But you got to have those, or you're just gonna be so beat down. Like, how the hell can you even get out of bed in the morning or pick up your camera as you head out the door? But the reality is we can get lost in this work, and for me, sorry if I got a little far away there. For me, this photograph like represents that. I this is a photograph that was everything to me, and still is, and yet I still lost sight of that. I lost
Of
sight in
what?
what's that?
Of what? You lost sight of?
I lost
Of
sight of what was most important. I lost sight of like how to work in a healthy way, how to work in a balanced way, how to work in a way that I could reflect on and be proud of. And it was just it was running and bearing myself in a work ethic that was nonstop. It was all I did. It didn't matter whether I was on the road or at home. I worked all day every day, and not like having the having the ability within myself to recognize what I was doing wrong, and not having people in my life, or ignoring the people in my life, the most important people, my family, who all said it, or even neighbors. I remember a neighbor saw me at the gas station, and we hadn't seen each other, literally my next door neighbor, and we hadn't seen each other in months. And I was all excited. He came walking out of the gas station, and I'm like smiling, going to say hi to him. And he glared at me and shook his head. And he's like, "Do you even realize you're missing everything?"
wow, wow.
And,
Oh, Danny.
you know,
Wow. How, I
and
know we're kind of almost running out of time, but how did you go from that because it changed now, right? Something has changed.
yeah,
Somehow you're managing it.
I think it's understanding. It's like studying people like Sarah Terry, our colleague who
Uh,
has a movie out called A Decent Home, and just seeing someone who so completely committed to the same issue, working in different spaces, but that same issue of wealth consolidation, and how do we how can we work in a way that has great impact, but it isn't about making sure that you know that we're suffering, you know, to the point of, you know, this like just great decline. And I think then you serve the story better, you're serving your subjects better, you're serving the impact better. And, you know, Sarah's work around, she's done a feature documentary about the impact of these private equity firms going in and buying up trailer parks and then raising the rent on residents in what has historically been, you know, some of our housing alternatives for people who suffer, you know, are you know, most challenged by the economics of the U.S. You know, this unjust economic system that we have. And, you know, people just, you know, the wealthiest among us preying upon the poorest among us. And, you know, to see Sarah work in that, in that way that, you know, just, you know, it inspires me, you know, not just to, you know, take action, make sure I'm supporting the, you know, individuals locally or, you know, doing the things here in Iowa, because she filmed in Iowa for this, as well as Colorado, California, and out east. You know, it's also seen, you know, just the way she does it with this just beautiful light around her at all times. And, you know, and that's something that, you know, I have great respect for and try to learn from and aspire, you know, to get closer to, you know.
She is such a hard worker. I
Oh,
don't know how she gets things done. She just does it. And then, like you say, she has something light about her. Like it doesn't. She seems to be in balance about this work in general. Yeah, it's quite inspirational. But I'm happy to hear that you kind of are finding that same path now. And so your neighbor and your family will see a bit more of you as well. I think in a way, I don't know if the same goes for you, but I think the pandemic in some weird way also helped to slow down a bit and to give some more thought about long-term projects instead of kind of running and taking all the assignments and flying. And I don't know if the same happened for you, but it was a retrospective time or kind of introspective time, I mean,
yeah.
in some way.
I mean, I agree completely. And I think, you know, there are just so many ways to, you know, do our work and, you know, the pace, you know, it doesn't have to be defined by, hopefully doesn't have to be defined by these commercial confinements or restrictions or entrapments or whatever you want to attach to that. And you know, I know it hasn't been in-depth conversations, but you know, because it's been so difficult even within an agency the size of ours to have any like conversations at length with colleagues on these things, because you know, it's just you know, we're all getting better, or I'm at least getting better in being able to do it in this way. And you know, and I said glass half full out of the pandemic, you know, telehealth. I really think that for rural America, you know, and the world over, you know, these cutoff communities, there's really something we've learned there, and I hope that things improve, and I hope all of us as a community can support each other and you know, and also you know, just reward you know, people finding that balance, you know, even if that's just like, you know, just a simple, you know, seeing a colleague who's, you know, building a home with their own hands and just acknowledging like how incredible.
Yeah, instead of always, to me it felt like before the pandemic actually people were making each other crazy, like, oh, where did you go on assignment, which country did you go, who are you working for now, blah, blah, blah. It was all about work all the time. I love it now when people are chatting a bit more about more personal stuff or what keeps them busy beside the work. It's, yeah, there's some kind of, I like the shift. we should move to the third question. Otherwise, we're really going to run out of time. And there are questions coming in as well in the Q&A. But
And
let's go.
Yeah, we can get to those. I mean, go ahead.
Let's go to the third one. What is your dream image or story? I see you are showing another beautiful image, by the way. It's amazing. Is this South Dakota as well?
Yeah. This is from Ogallala Lakota Nation Powwow. So it's a horse race. Good friends of mine were racing in it, and it's just X-Pan, backlit, sun's going down. A couple dozen horses, just amazing people. and then that magic dust, that I really
magic dust, yeah. Especially with the sun on the grass in the front. So are you showing this because this is because the question is, what is your dream image or story you would like to work on? Is this a story you would like to continue, or?
Well, how I was thinking about the question is, this is the pursuit. That magic dust that, this was shot with an X-Pan, so film, and I'm going through the negatives, with the light in my dark room, and it's like, because in the moment I'm shooting, and it's like, I obviously recognize that, things were coming together, but, then all of a sudden it's like I come to a frame, and it's that second rider, that ghost rider, that, that metaphor, that just, magic. And, that's just the gods like saying, okay, here's one. And we're giving you one, and you better respect that, and it's then a pursuit to always get to that point, and I love that pursuit. It's it can become an addiction, like the negative of trying to chasing that first high. It's like, that addicts talk a lot about, and that's one I wouldn't actually know. Some others I do, but
this one not. But for pictures, it goes kind of the same, especially with moments like this. You're like, you just kind of know that something magical is going to appear.
Yeah.
And when it happens, you want it to happen a second time. Yeah, it's quite a chase, or it can be quite a chase.
So that's kind of how I looked at it. It's not to say, I mean, I hope I've been plenty clear with all the failure, and, but then when you have success, I would like younger photographers to realize, I talk about, that when a photo hits, and when it hits, when you live with it. I actually have this photo. We have this photo up in our house, and that's I tell young photographers, when you think something hits, then live with it, put it on the wall, and where you will see it multiple times every day. And then, when something really works, it develops a life of its own, and you have a conversation with it on a daily basis, and it develops, and it becomes its own living thing. And I mean, we're chasing a handful of those, so I kind of took it more as a way to give advice. Again, I'm not trying to sit here and say, I have no dream image because I've already made no, that's bullshit. I'm chasing like every day I'm chasing to make something this good.
It's never done. It never is. It's just not true. So what? Talking about advice,
heroes, like
what? Sorry.
And all my photo heroes, I'm chasing. We're all chasing. We're all chasing.
Kind of chasing each other.
Dan Golden and Sally Mann, and and Anders Peterson, and it just keeps going and going. And
there's so many good new people come into the industry as well. I see it with our mentees at 7. It's like, what? They're just amazing. And you
Yeah.
just feel like, okay, I'll be chasing forever to look for good pictures. So before we literally ran out of time,
Yeah.
Danny, let's go to my last questions, and then I'm gonna really try to get to the Q&A as well. What advice would you give your younger self?
Well, I got advice from at the Eddie Adams workshop from Youngie Kim, where she said I was all nervous, like anxiety. It was about, blowing my head apart, and I really wanted Youngie to see my work, and she could see this nervousness, this anxiety, and she was such a calming voice, and she looked at me and she was like, she said, be patient. You need patience. This takes a long time. And then she proceeded to just talk about that. And it was incredible. It was, it allowed me in situations, I have friends who, it's like they're driven by, I'm going to go places where no one else goes, and they go to, say, a conflict zone, and trust me, I've already spoke about how important that work is, and I have the deepest respect for all our colleagues who go to those places. But for me, it was like there are a lot of people there, and and for me it was this emotional space that an army of a half dozen photographers can't surround these emotional spaces that I'm working to get into. And I just knew, and it was that conversation with Youngie that just played over and over in my head. So it's to trust it, whether I got lost at times. Yeah, I got lost at times, and and I fortunately recognized that and would pull back and stop covering so much politics. And while I needed it financially, I was like, what, there are photographers everywhere. What the hell am I doing? I've lost track. I'm off course. And so I guess it's a bit of continuous advice to myself, and hopefully this is advice to those out there who are thinking about these same things, early career, wherever you're at, thinking about those same things.
Yeah, I'm actually happy you're saying this. It's a really good advice to me. I can be very, I don't know. Yeah, I just recognize it. I don't know how to explain it, but you sometimes feel it's going too slow, or the stories are not working out, or the right publication is not publishing it, or anything. You can just kind of feel like, sometimes I really feel like I want things to go or to move faster, but things, don't move faster just because you want them to. Usually things will slow down actually if you want them to go faster. So to hear this advice, I think for a lot of photographers this would be the perfect advice. It's what you do in the long run, long term. Stick to the plan, keep going. It's funny because I always tell to my students when I'm teaching, like, just keep going. It's like, I think that's what Dory also says in Finding Nemo, like, just keep going. And it's like, that's it. Just keep going, just find your track, stay on it. And if you kind of derail sometimes, just, try again and keep going. And to stay calm while doing that, that's what we need to do, I feel. It can be such a frustrating thing, photography, because you just, I don't know, it's so intertwined with you personally. It's not a job. It's that makes it crazy in a way.
Yeah.
Shall we? Go ahead. What would you want to say?
Yeah, I love what you said there. It's not a job. It's a way of life. It's it's just you're living the story, and I think those who also there are photographers out there who just been able to make they're just find that balance in a way that I just have the greatest respect for, you know, finding ways to collaborate with others. Yeah, sometimes even spouses, Alex and Becky Webb, you know, just
Yeah,
love their
beautiful.
work and everything about them, or it's following the career of Eugene Richards, you know, and just how incredible of a person, or learning so much from Jeff Jacobson when he was alive, and then seeing the relationship that that I won't say it in past tense, that he has with his son Henry. And these are just it's people do this thing in such beautiful ways, and then our colleague Maggie Sievers, like
I
literally
know.
like one of the most inspirational people and storytellers I've and it was way before she like I had the fortune of getting to know her, and that's like I've never understood what I love about the music industry is the connections they have. They play each other's songs. They record each other's songs, which will give support, whether it's Willie recording you know oh my gosh, Blaze Foley. Sorry, geez, can't
But
believe.
we have less of that in this industry, you say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like Willie recording Blaze Foley's song, which gives him just like this incredible like songwriting fame, and but more importantly, I'm sure for Blaze at the time was it helped him financially, like huge. And it just
That's
all. And I think I
super important
think it
to
was
kind of.
actually Townes Van Zandt. I said Blaze Foley, but it was Willie recording Townes. But it
Sorry.
was the same for Townes. Unfortunately for Townes, he was probably spent a
But
lot
it's
of
true that I think in photography we should have more of this. It's one of the reasons I wanted to join Seven, to be more collaborative. But Danny, we're actually past the hour, which we have like chatted more than we should have. And I would really like to get to the Q&A. There are 3
Yeah,
questions in there. Is that okay
okay.
with you?
Love to.
But let's see, because
Can I stop
they
sharing?
might be comments instead of, oh yeah, and then you can see them yourself as well.
There. Okay.
Okay,
Are there
let's
still
try
are
to
still people
answer
here?
the.
Oh my gosh, you all are
Yes,
like
there are a lot of people here.
have
Everyone's
gone
chatting.
over. I'm so sorry.
And
I've loved talking with you. It's great.
yeah, I've been loving this as well. I could go on and on, but I think most people think this would be an hour, so some of them have to
Yeah.
leave. I see. Yeah, there are a few people saying goodbye as well. Are you reading the chat?
It's up. I don't know if I know how.
Every
Oh, I
segment
just have
says
to
thank
scroll
you.
down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox Frazier, for such inspirational speaking engagement, wonderful pictures that touch the heart and tell a story. Thank you for restoring hope to some of us. So there you go. Okay, let's go quickly to the Q&A, and thanks, Jeffrey, for the lovely words. So Joseph Murphy is asking, you have traveled around the world covering important events. What intrigues you after many years to document rural America?
Well, I mean, the only reason why well, that's not entirely true. The reason why I got to return to doing international work is because of the work that I did in Iowa, and I'm most proud when I've had the opportunity to continue on the issues that I've covered across the U.S., mostly the Midwest and Great Plains. But when I can continue those issues in places like Senegal, the Seven Foundation sent me to Senegal to look at the impact of the Millennium Villages projects, which was came out of the UN's Millennium Goals of ending world poverty, and this was out of the Earth Institute at Columbia. Jeffrey Sachs started a program that worked on figuring out how to do that with local sustainable development in rural communities. And I is just one of the greatest things. Actually, I had returned to Senegal to show that work in the communities we made it in, and was traveling home when the lockdown happened. That was late February 2020. It's the last time I've been out of the US. So I don't know, maybe I don't work internationally anymore. But a beautiful thing that's come out of this is a lot of editors have discovered photographers who are working in their own backyard, and we're getting those stories by, so narratives about, important issues and peoples and written by those who it's their home. And obviously that's what I'm about with my work in rural Iowa, rural middle America. And so I think it's a beautiful thing. So if that's the way it's going to go, I never travel internationally again, then hey, thumbs up. It's a beautiful thing. But it's I want to. There's so many amazing stories out there in rural communities the world over. It's all tied together. It's all tied together, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Though I'm not going to be someone who, just runs to the next big story. I have colleagues who have been documenting, whether genocide, war, aggression. I mean, this is what they've done their entire careers, and I have the greatest respect for them. Women and men who risk it all when they're doing that work, I decided long ago that it probably picked me, I picked it, whatever, what mattered. And that was home, what I was most connected to. And these issues that rural Iowa was suffering, still suffers, I'm still working on. That's what's driven me. And that's the only time I've ended up somewhere. That's why.
Thanks, Danny. I think the next question it's a little bit about the same thing, but a bit different. Nick Rollman is asking, what is a time you have found a moment or moments of joy within the reality of what life is in these declining population rural communities? I can imagine there has been quite a bit of moments of joy in there as well.
So many. So many, and humor is like, and this isn't just, impoverished rural communities. I found this because I have worked in urban settings. I mean, it's always been mostly in Detroit. And the reason why I've worked there so much is because Detroit's the only city in America where the population was at one point over 1 million and then dropped down below. So depopulation is very much part of the story of Detroit, everything that has driven that, all the impact of those who are left in the wake of that out migration. And, and again, we could talk about all that for a week straight. And there are people with so much more expertise than me, but fortunately I know some of them and read everything they write, and some of them I know personally. But Nick, your question is spot on, and I think it's really important for all of us to make sure that we highlight that as well in our work, but also in our interaction with the work. So for me, it's humor, like, the humor that, I can just think of sitting around listening to John, or, situations, in small towns all over where it just, we just ended up just losing it. And if you don't have that sense of humor, that self-deprecating sense of humor, at least in the rural areas, but I found it in the urban areas as well, people are going to be very skeptical, and I'm skeptical of those people. So it's, I am. I mean, I'm from a small town, small Iowa town on the Mississippi River, and you know, that's just that's the reality of it. And you know, we, you know, so those are the, you know, whether it be a friend's father-in-law, asking him if he needed help with his white man problem, that he could, you know, that he could shoot me, and then I answer back, you know, you better shoot straight because I shoot back. And you know, then he starts laughing and everyone starts laughing, and the ice is broke and everything's great. And you know,
That's amazing that you can connect in that way because you are from a similar kind of background, right?
Yeah,
It makes it-
absolutely.
yeah.
And you know, and those are the moments that I'll always remember. John Waters, first time I met him, you know, I'm driving through a small town in South Dakota, and I see a guy on a bucking horse, bareback, of course, and this, you know, and the horse rears up, goes off its hind legs, so it's completely airborne, comes down on its side. And you know, I throw my truck into park in the middle of the highway, and I run over because I'm thinking this guy is going to be hurt and I need to help. And the horse jumps up, he jumps up, and when he jumps up, he's standing like this, his eyes huge, and he's like, "What do you want?" And he was like ready to fight. You know?
You just
And I
wanted to
was like,
help.
"Whoa, man! Are you all right?" I came over to help, and he's like, "I'm fine, man. Why'd you run onto my property?" I'm like, and then I'm like, well, wait, I'm a photographer. Let me go get my camera. I want to take your photo. And you know, and I've been friends with them ever since. You know, I mean,
Aw.
that's the stuff that matters most. You know, the hard moments, yeah, they're hard moments. You know, they're moments where you're not sure you're going to get out of it alive. And you know, that's a job. That's the job. And you know, this is the
Beauty of
secret
this
sauce that
job.
matters most.
Yeah, I agree. So there's another question, and then we should really
Call it.
round it up.
Poor David.
Yeah.
Thank you, David. David,
All the extra time.
We're
No,
gonna
but this has been really lovely. There's a question from Kent. I think it should be is. How are you reading the question? How is your lack of human balancing exemplify the lovely shots of your wife and child? Well, you did kind of explain, I feel, but at one level, it seems like a phenomenal image to be so proud of. Can you elaborate a little more? Well, I guess it wasn't about the image itself, right? That being a failure. Are you seeing the...
yeah. I mean, it's just it's you know, it's I'm talking about it in a way that I hope just helps others reflect on what, you know, how they're interacting with their own professional life, the professional side, you know, the and thinking about balance. And you know, I mean, this isn't like I most of my, if you go back and listen to my talks, I mean, like one of these talks, VI7 Insider talks, you know, I brought a subject on, and I most often don't want the, you know, attention. I kind of run from photographers who are I and me and it really, but you know, these questions, Ilvy, I'll be candid. I just in really reflecting on them from when you know, sent them to me, I was like, gosh, like I think you could learn so much out of this series, and I've watched them and I've learned so much. And you know, and your conversation with Maggie especially, and you know, I had a lot of students who watched that, and just you know, and I learned so much and had such respect for it and wanted to do it. And I just want, you know, I was like, what would I have wanted? What would I have wanted if I was you know, a woman or a man, from young professional, from rural America, you know, a small village in Kenya, just the world over. What would I want to hear from someone who's worked in this space? And you know, I just have to be candid about aspects. And you know, and it doesn't have to be someone who works in the rural space or from a rural space. Obviously those individuals I think are going to connect to me. Those are individuals I connect to often automatically. But you know, that's how I thought about this. And you know, so you know, forgive me for talking so much about myself.
No, that's what this is. I mean, this has been amazing, the way you've shared so much. I think this was actually maybe the first episode or first talk like this, and I find it very inspirational. And you can check the chat. I'm not the only one thinking this. There's a lot of people thanking you for your openness, and Maria says thank you for the honest and heartfelt conversations. And Stefan says, thanks for these wise words from you. I mean, everyone, I think a lot of people can kind of relate to what you have been discussing, and it's something that a lot of people don't talk about, which is too bad in a way, because I think a lot of people relate to these kind of subjects and are dealing with similar things. So yeah, really, thanks, Danny. It's been amazing to have you here, and all your wise words and your beautiful images. It's really been lovely. Oh, check the chats now. There's more people. Well, check it, please. It's a lot to read. And one more thing, Liam, I saw you ask the question to me. Maybe you can write to me. You can write me an email. You'll find my email easily online. So please just reach out. Yeah, Danny, thanks so much. And thanks everyone for listening. It's been really lovely to have everyone here, to have you here, Danny. And yeah, I hope everyone tunes into the next one. And please check out the 7 Insider website as well for other things that will be coming up soon. So yeah, thanks, Danny, again. I don't know how to thank you. This was beautiful.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for doing this. And you know, these are the kinds of conversations that I think we need to have. And you are, you know, you're driving that and building that community, and you know, and all those in the background at, you know, I'm not going to sit here and just, you know, do promotion of our agency, so I'm not even going to say it, but everyone else, you know, in the background, it's really important. It's important for people to be able to participate and listen and hopefully learn, and you know, and then go out and create and make a change, in your own life, make a change in someone else's life, like have impact with what we do. It's such an amazing way to interact with the world. But I really hope, like, what we're collectively about is making a difference and making the world a better place.
Thank you. Thanks so much. That's beautiful.
Thanks,
Thanks everyone, and see you on the next episode.
Thanks everyone for being here.
Thank you. Bye-bye.